Hey guys, this is Jay here with FantasyLabs. I'm joined here with my buddy Pete, aka CSU Ram 88. We're here to break down this tomorrow, Wednesday, May 20th.
Tuesday.
Tomorrow's. I'm looking at the clock. We always record after midnight now. I always look at the wrong day. The
Yep.
Tuesday. It's the 24th though, right?
Oh
Tomorrow.
yeah, you're on it now, Jay.
Oh yeah, I'm back on track. The Tuesday, May 24th, 14 game slate. So pretty full slate, heavy slate. Pete, how you doing?
Doing well, Jay. I'm pretty surprised Toronto beat Cleveland tonight, but yeah, that was interesting. Definitely enjoying all the playoff stuff going on. Draymond Green did not get suspended. Which, real quick, let's dovetail into that. What were your thoughts on that, Jay?
I thought it could have gone either way. It was interesting because I was kind of working the news, so I was reading a lot of the information coming out in real time, and it looked like it was getting more and more to a guarantee that he was getting suspended. We even saw, I didn't see them all, but there were a lot of fake Woj bombs out there circulating. We had some legit tweets from guys who are probably shaming themselves right now who really want to take them back, but we saw the line change from Warriors -1 to Thunder -1. We saw what else do we see? We saw, Draymond was -175 to get suspended. So the whole ordeal was pretty crazy. I definitely was surprised that he didn't get suspended.
Yeah, I was very grateful that he didn't get suspended. Definitely think the Warriors are going to win, or at least I'm hopeful the Warriors are going to win at this point.
Yeah.
So if he would have been suspended, it would have been big trouble for them. And it was interesting. I mean, he does kind of flail his legs on a lot of different plays. It looks intentional from one angle, but certainly a hard situation. I'm just glad in general, like as an NBA fan, that we have, Golden State full strength and Oklahoma City at full strength. And I hope we have close games to end the series instead of these blowouts, because it can be some really fun basketball. But yeah, interesting that happened. And the NBA season is definitely coming down to a stretch, but we still have a ton of baseball. So obviously, that's what this is about. And I actually really like this slate. So many good offensive spots and a lot of pitching options. So tournament players, it's a great day. And I actually like it a lot for cash, too.
Yeah, I agree. Looking it over, we have a lot of top-heavy pitchers where you can kind of pick and choose and get contrarian with some of those top guys. So, and yeah, we definitely have a lot of baseball left. The season is really long, so a ton more slates. And we'll jump into this one. Kind of starting off real quick, we'll just kind of go over the Vegas lines, Vegas data a bit. This is the night before, so everything's not set yet. But at the top, as of now, we have the Red Sox, Rangers, Tigers, and Pirates as teams to possibly target in stacks and get exposure to in cash and tournament formats. At the bottom, we have the Padres, Indians, Mets, and Athletics all currently implied to score very little runs, especially the Padres there, which is typical, especially going against a good pitcher. So I think using this information, as usual, we'll just make adjustments based on any Vegas data that changes throughout the day tomorrow, kind of focusing on movement, maybe reverse line movement to put us on exposure to different teams here and there. So is there anything you're kind of looking at just that stands out to you with any lines or data?
I mean, I think the lines are pretty self-explanatory given the opposing pitchers. I want to play a quick game, Jay. Which totals do you think are going to change? And I'm just this is totally new, just throwing it at you. But if you had to guess, what totals do you think might move tomorrow?
Like game totals or just team?
Yeah, team totals. And again, I know you're. I think the Red Sox total will go higher. I really like.
It'll go higher than like 5. Isn't it like 5.3?
The implied total is 5.3, and I think it goes to 5.5 or higher tomorrow.
Okay, that's pretty high. I think the Reds total will kind of increase. We're seeing, the Dodgers are very thin on pitching. They just used a lot of pitching. Obviously, the other game that went like 17 innings or whatever. So I look at kind of the thin starting pitchers available for them. They used a lot in that game, Stripling. So I'm looking at the Reds as a sneaky team to kind of build throughout the day.
Okay, yeah, I like that. I think that'll be fun. Well, I'm going to try to do that. And that's one thing I think you guys can do as well is try to identify spots. If you're researching the night before or even early in the day, before lineups come out, try to identify spots that you think, we might see nice line movement for whatever reason. You find some data to back it up. And then if it does, normally that's a really good sign. So something I'm trying to identify the night before is what team totals do I think are going to rise and what team totals do I think are going to go down. And hopefully that can help you guys, just think about the game a little bit differently and identify good hitting and pitching spots.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. You kind of read into the script of these games initially because the lines aren't, exactly correct the night before especially, so a lot can change. So I think it builds a process for you if you continue to kind of guess these teams right, which ones will increase, which ones will decrease, because you can kind of see the errors in the Vegas lines and take advantage of those errors. So definitely.
And you can see why, a lot of times the line will move because of the lineup that comes out. So that's, you can easily understand that. They put out a very weak lineup or that lineup looks strong versus the pitcher, and you can see some movement around that. But there are other reasons, and I think identifying pitchers, weather, and if you can get good at predicting how lines are going to move, that's a great sign that you're understanding a lot of different dynamics of baseball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and weather I think is a huge thing. Obviously, we track wind factors, percentage of rain, so all types of things with weather. If the roof is closed, it can change things. And then you look at, like you said, lineup changes. If a team rolls out a lot of lefties against a righty or vice versa, those are all things that can also increase or decrease a run total. So that's probably the best way to do it the night before, since lineups aren't set, so you can kind of anticipate beforehand to get a jump on everybody else sleeping in and whatnot. So let's go ahead and jump into the next topic and go over a couple pitchers. We did mention that this is a great slate for pitching. So who are two guys that you're looking at on this pitching loaded slate?
Well, Jay, you left me the gem. I think Strasburg is my favorite option tomorrow. You chose Sale, and there's a ton of reasons to love Sale. I do love Sale tomorrow as well, but I think Strasburg is a cheaper, similar option who actually has a really good matchup against the Mets, in my opinion. The Mets do pay. They're traveling here. Obviously, there is some power bats you're concerned with against Strasburg, like Anderson, Conferto, Cespedes and Duda, but those guys do K enough, and the bottom of the lineup, I think, could really struggle against him. So I like him. There's some stats I'll get into a little bit more about why I think he might even be a better option than Sale tomorrow, especially when you consider the price. On DraftKings, it's only a $400 difference, but on FanDuel, it's much bigger, and his price has gone down a lot on FanDuel. So I really, really like him there. And the other guy that I'm pretty high on, not super high on, but is Jeff Samardzija, coming off a great game against San Diego, where he was in San Diego. He gave up just one run, struck out 8, put up 34.2 DraftKings fantasy points, and now he's at home versus San Diego, who's just awful versus righties and awful in general. So the one thing that makes me pause with him is just the recency bias. I think a lot of people will look at, he just had the same matchup, dominated it, but I do still think he's a pretty nice option tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. And that's brings up something that I want to look at just more in general is teams that face a pitcher back-to-back games, kind of seeing his stuff. I mean, they've played him before, but just a recent game against him, if they're kind of, it takes them 3 times around the order to finally be like, okay, his fastball's biting this way, his two-seamer or whatever. And then the next go around, they kind of see the pitches better. That's something I kind of want to get into for a potential maybe trend of the day, teams facing a pitcher in back-to-back games. But yeah, I like the calls a lot. I think it's tough with Strasburg and Sale. I obviously like both quite a bit. Like we said, this is a loaded slate with pitching, so I think you might want to focus a bit more on other spots in your lineup or kind of weigh the ownership levels for these two pitchers if you're playing tournaments and kind of base it that way. But I'll start with Chris Sale and get into him. I think I definitely want to focus on Chris Sale a lot in cash because he has 100% consistency percentage this month, which is the highest out of any pitcher. Well, it's tied actually. They're 4 total. We are going through, I think, all 4 of them. It's Strasburg, the Shark, and then actually the 4th is Chris Tillman, who's quietly just been crushing. I don't know if you've seen him this month, but it was definitely under the radar. His numbers, it blew me away. So still not a guy I'm really looking at going too much on this slate. So Sale has the highest predicted strikeouts according to our K predictor at 8.6. I love the consistency for cash. Like I said, his capability to go deep into games is something I really target in cash as well. Anything to kind of elevate that floor. So I'm fine paying for the high floor here in cash. Indians are only applied to score 2.9 runs, which I believe is the bottom 2 lowest on the slate. So obviously Sale's good play. We don't need to go too much more into it. Another guy I'm looking at, and this is probably more for tournaments, is Justin Verlander. He's looked very Verlander-ish this season in terms of strikeouts. He has the second highest K per 9 rate of his career this season. So he's striking out a lot of guys, which is always nice to see from Verlander, who used to be a pretty solid strikeout pitcher. He gets to face the Phillies at home. They're 27th in the league in WOBA against right-handed pitching. So love the matchup. And then as a tournament play, I think on FanDuel especially, you look at that 8,500 price tag, a bargain rating of 98%. So I think that you look at that, it saves almost $4K from a guy like Chris Sale. So I think that warrants some exposure in tournaments so you can spend up on bats a little bit, kind of get contrarian there. So after those two guys, we'll talk about a pitcher to fade on this slate. There are a lot of good guys. So who's a guy you're kind of looking to just throw away and fade in cash or tournaments?
I think Teheran's a guy I'm looking to fade, and I do see merit in taking him, which is why it's kind of different than normal for my fade. A lot of times I have a fade where it's just like there's no reason I'm going to play him. But Teheran I do see against Milwaukee. But the reason I think he's a fade and the reason I want to bring him up is the opportunity cost of taking Teheran, especially in a cash game. Versus these other elite pitchers is just too high. He's not striking out enough guys for me. And although, it's a good matchup, I'm still not going to take him just because there are other elite options. And that's something that you always have to consider in cash, especially when you think you found some good bats that you really like and you just need, some savings. Sometimes like, oh, this is still a good spot. But when you have guys in elite spots, you have to really consider the opportunity cost. And I just think it's too high between Teheran and a lot of these guys tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough to kind of get the same upside out of him as you can. A lot of these other guys, it's just not there. The guy I'm fading, and I don't dislike him that much, but is Francisco Liriano. I'm trying to get a guy who I would generally play, but it's a player I'm personally going to fade on this slate. And it mainly has to do with the matchup. I just wanted to pick a guy who I think people will play, who has strikeout upside, and Liriano kind of fits that bill. So I look at the Diamondbacks. They actually they've been solid against lefties all season. They have the 4th highest team WOBA against lefties, the 3rd highest ISO, and the 7th lowest strikeout percentage. So a guy like Liriano, a guy who's really, really inconsistent, especially this year, kind of throughout his career, as always. I look for optimal situations when I roster him, and this doesn't stand out as an optimal situation. I want that good matchup before rostering an inconsistent pitcher. So I'll have little to no exposure. And you kind of see things with Liriano, his inconsistency. Last start, he had a prime match against the Braves, who can't hit lefties, and he had a very mediocre game for his price. So he's a guy I'm comfortable fading. Again, just kind of going these top-tier guys, getting that upside. So let's move on.
I like that call. He's walked a ton of guys. That's the big thing for me.
Yeah,
pay attention to his walking, his walk rate and his whip.
Yeah.
And when it starts to trend in a bad direction, you got to wait to reverse.
It's terrifying rostering him on a bad day too. It's like just as bad as rostering Gio Gonzalez when he walks the pitcher and with bases loaded. So it's just a nightmare. But with all these high-priced pitchers we just highlighted, let's get into some hitters. We'll talk about a couple of hitters we like regardless of price. These guys might fall more into tournament plays just because you're most likely going to spend up on pitching. They'll be hard to fit. But who are 2 hitters you're looking at regardless of price?
Mookie Betts is a guy that I absolutely love. And if you look at him relative to, say, a Mike Trout, just in general, they look like pretty similar players. Power, speed, which is a theme kind of here. But I want to target guys who can do both. And the beautiful thing about Betts this year, and just in general, is he's leading off a really nice lineup. And at home, I just think there's so much potential here against De La Rosa. So, I think he is pretty much a no-brainer, elite play for me tomorrow. The other guy that I would bring up, I talked about Trout. I like him tomorrow as well. And I think Bryce Harper will be very low owned relative to normal because of these other elite options. So I think he's a nice play, especially against Harvey. I wouldn't play Harper in cash at all. I think there's way too many good options, but I think he is an elite tournament option tomorrow going against Harvey. If Harvey challenges him, which Harvey has the tendency to do, this could be a great spot. People are going to be stacking the Nationals as much. and he's just as expensive, or not more expensive, than guys like Betts and Trout and other elite options in the outfield.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Nationals are a sneaky stack just with the way Harvey's been pitching. One hitter I'm looking at who's pretty expensive is, well, actually he's not that expensive, is Chris Davis with a C. Currently the number one overall hitter on the Bales 2016 model. He's 3,800 on FanDuel and 4,300 on DraftKings, so I think he's pretty affordable. He has a 433 WOBA, 367 ISO against righties. It's the second highest ISO differential out of any starting hitter besides your boy Trevor Story against the lefty, which is insane. But he also is facing David Price, and it's on the road away from Coors Field. So look at Chris Davis; he essentially has the best ISO differential on the slate. He also has positive advanced stats in his last 15 days. With his batted ball data are all positive. So I like to see that. He gets to face off against Doug Fister, who has a top 6 home run rate out of starting pitchers on this slate. So all things considered, I might lean him a bit more in tournaments. He's not the spot I'm trying to fill out immediately after going either Sale or Strasburg in cash. I'm going to try to pinpoint those value plays, see if I can comfortably pay up for Chris Davis, but I definitely like exposure to him, and I think if you are paying up at first base, you're going to want to look at Miguel Cabrera, who's on fire, or Chris Davis here. And then another hitter I really like a lot, goes into your Mookie Betts call, is Xander Bogaerts. He's riding a 16-game hitting streak. He has a Ted Williams-esque average this month at 404 batting average. The same month, his consistency has been 69%, which is tied for the league among all hitters on this slate, with his teammate Jackie Bradley Jr. actually. So yeah, like you talked about the Red Sox, this lineup is just devastating for pitchers. So I love getting exposure to them in easy matchups. He has a 431 WOBA against lefties. He gets to face off, like you said, Jorge De La Rosa, which we both know how bad he is. So in this spot, I'd really like the Red Sox a lot. They have a high implied run total, and then I think you look at Bogaerts, he does carry a high price tag, so probably more realistic in tournaments. But on FanDuel, he does have a bargain rating of 76%, so that's probably where you try to squeeze him in your cash lineups. Speaking of squeezing in hitters with these high-priced pitchers, let's move on to the next topic with value hitters, who are a couple of guys you're looking at fitting in with these high-priced pitchers.
Well, I love Josh Rutledge. I think he's a really elite option for the Red Sox. Assuming he's going to play, it looks like Travis Shaw will not play tomorrow, based on the news. And he's a guy that gets a huge benefit playing on the Red Sox tomorrow. I mean, just being surrounded by elite batters. He has nice splits versus lefties, and I think it's a really, really good spot against De La Rosa, who, if you just look at his game log, I mean, he's given up 3 home runs multiple times recently, and he's gotten torched. I mean, he hasn't pitched that recently, but when he was pitching this year in April, he was just giving up tons of earned runs, tons of home runs, and that's why I think we're going to see the Red Sox total move even higher, because I think De La Rosa is just absolute garbage, and then there'll be long relievers for the Rockies.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely.
And so the other guy that I like is not exactly in our cheap range, but I just want to point something out. Carlos Correa, I know it's a tough matchup against Tillman, who's been pitching well, but he's only 3,700 on DraftKings. He's not even close to play on FanDuel, where he's 3,900 and relatively close to Bogaerts, only 500 cheaper. But on DraftKings, he's so cheap, and that's something I think is really important to just identify. Go through and look at some of even the not ideal team spots and try to pick out the players that might be way too underpriced. And it's definitely that. DraftKings is really dynamic in their pricing, and I think it makes it fun. They put them at a price that makes you have to consider them. So I will always look at a guy who steals bases, hits home runs. I mean, coming into the year, he was an MVP candidate. I think Correa at 3,700 is a really interesting play, and certainly someone I like for tournaments.
Yeah, especially with baseball just being so high variance as it is. You look at a guy like Correa with his upside at that price, you got to take some chances, some exposure tournaments. I do like how DraftKings does that a lot. They price people down who are slumping. They did it a lot in football. They did a lot in basketball, and it makes it really, really tough. I mean, they had Kobe at like 4,900 for a while, and it makes it really hard to say, okay, he's so cheap, but he's only going to play 26 minutes. He has the downside of leaving at halftime, shooting 2 for 37. So I like the pricing that DraftKings has. It definitely makes things tougher, but it also gives you an advantage if you can kind of mix and match exposure to these types of players in cash and tournaments. A value hitter, I'll keep with the trend of our pod, which is stack the Red Sox, basically. A value hitter I'm looking at is Chris Young. I think whatever pitching route you go tonight, you're going to spend up most likely, so you're going to need to key in on these value bats. So Chris Young, you look at facing the lefty Jorge De La Rosa, who we just explained how he's garbage. He's 2,500 on FanDuel. Chris Young is a 395 WOBA, a 210 ISO against lefties. This season alone, he's 9 for 24 with 3 home runs against lefties. So I think it's a pretty easy play personally in cash, kind of as a way to save money while keeping that upside and consistency against the lefties. So any chance I can get in targeting the Red Sox guys at a very cheap price, I'm going to take. The other guy is strictly a tournament play just because he's been so bad this season, is Prince Fielder. And again, just going back to the pitching, I think you kind of look at the top 4 price pitchers. I think will all be the chalkiest 4 pitchers. So that's Chris Sale, Strasburg, David Price, I think will carry pretty decent ownership, and then Samardzija as well, especially coming off that last game versus the Padres. So I like to get contrarian with my hitters if the pitchers are generally going to be a bit higher owned and you're not going to find as many contrarian plays there at the top. So Prince Fielder, I think, is a very contrarian play with how bad he's been. He's definitely priced down at just 2,900. The Rangers are implied to score the second most runs overall. So I look at Prince, and I know he's lost a bit of his power. His upside might be diminished, but just being in this lineup as a whole, hoping he can kind of get on base a few times, knock in some runs, score some runs, and put upside that way. I'm looking at exposure to him at probably decreased ownership with other better options on paper than Prince.
Love that call. Texas Rangers are in a great spot.
Yeah. And another thing with Prince, just looking at him more in depth, just seeing like what's wrong with him. He does have a 229 batting average on balls in play, which is by far the lowest in his career. So I think that will trend upward, kind of normalize over time. I don't think it'll stay that low all season. Obviously, it's very, very low compared to his career average. So I like taking exposure on guys like that who are getting unlucky in tournaments, and he kind of fits that. So speaking of, our next topic is stacks. I think we already highlighted the Red Sox. I don't think we need to mention that. I don't know what your stack is. What do you got for us? Is it
that is my stack.
All right. Well, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Well, first of all, I'll give you another reason. That's the team I won the Millie with.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think like 3 or 4 of my biggest scores ever in baseball are all Red Sox stacks. So against De La Rosa, I'm gonna have to figure out a way to get contrarian. I'm gonna go with the lower half or something. I'm gonna do something, but I will have some Red Sox.
Jackie Bradley, yeah, definitely catcher, perhaps. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm gonna do something unique with the Red Sox tomorrow.
Okay. Or
who's your pick,
I was going to say the Nationals, but I think we kind of briefly touched that. Just going against Matt Harvey, who's really struggled. He looks lost out there. Speed's down 2 miles per hour in the last 15 days. He's facing the Nationals, who we just saw roughed him up a bit. So I think it's a big game for Harvey here, and I think the Nationals could do some damage. But looking more and more into this slate, I think a stack I'm really high on is the Orioles facing Doug Fister, specifically looking at Machado, Adam Jones, Chris Davis, Mark Trumbo, and Matt Wieters. So the 2 through 6 stack. 3 of these hitters have exceptional batted ball stats in the last 15 days, especially Wieters. He's kind of on a tear right now, so I'm looking for a lot of exposure to him as part of Orioles stacks. They lead the league, the Orioles, with 49 home runs against right-handed pitching. Adam Jones is cheap. Wieters is cheap on FanDuel. And they're only implied to score a modest 4.2 runs. So that's something I'm definitely looking at in terms of seeing what other people might think of this number and how much exposure they're going to give to the Orioles. They are hitting in a decent hitting park as well, even though they're on the road. So I like the home run upside with a lot of these hitters and the cheap costs associated with it. So hopefully it puts them under the radar, and that's a stack that I'm probably the highest on as of now.
Love it. Home run team versus a pitcher who can give up some home runs. It's a great stack.
Exactly. So let's move on to the stat of the day. What do you got for us?
So my stat of the day is if you just look at Strauss, a couple stats for him. I mean, he's significantly cheaper than Sale on FanDuel, and some stats I think are really important. He's almost identical to Sale, and he's actually a little bit better. It's a higher K per 9 than Sale, 11.67 versus 11.37, and he's giving up a lower home run per 9. than Sale over the last 12 months. So a couple stats I think are really important for pitchers. You look at WHIP, you look at a lot of things that are important, but strikeouts, giving up a few home runs is very important. And I think that Strauss is basically the same thing as Sale tomorrow in terms of what you're expecting. Faces a National League team at home and significantly cheaper. So that's the stat of the day.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, he's definitely in a good spot to crush. The stat of the day that stood out to me is David Price, kind of his favorable advanced stats in the last 15 days. His hard hit percentage allowed is down 10%, which is the second best out of all starters in the last 15 days. He also has a 5 mile per hour decrease in exit velocity allowed, which is second best among all starters. So just kind of looking at the way he's been pitching, I think he has been getting a tad bit unlucky for a good portion of this season. He does get to face the Rockies at home, away from Coors Field. So I like tournament exposure to him quite a bit on DraftKings. He's only 8,900, bargain rating of 94%. So as pitcher number 2, perhaps, I'm looking at a lot of David Price exposure, complete game upside he has in this matchup. So basically I'm looking at the advanced stats for David Price, and it's positive for me. So I'm going to have a lot of exposure with that matchup.
Great call.
Leads us to.
I want to stack the Rockies tomorrow, but I can't.
I mean, you got to stack your boy Trevor Story in some, I think.
Yeah. Some exposure story might happen, but we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. What do you got for the bold call of the day for this slate?
I'm going ex-Rocky, Josh Rutledge, with the double dong. That's my bold calls are mostly going to be some double dong guys. Normally I take a more upside, like a Bryce Harper would be a classic call here, but I am really feeling the Red Sox stack, and I'm feeling the lower part of the order dominating, and Rutledge is my call.
Okay, I like it. I like it a lot, yeah.
What's your bold call, Jay? Last time it was not bold at all.
What was it?
I don't remember what it was. I don't remember either, but I remember giving you crap that wasn't very bold.
I don't know, man. I've been on like 20 baseball pods in a row. I lose track of my bold calls. Some are bold. I was going to say my bold call is Rougned Hodor will not win his appeal. That's obviously not bold at all. So I'm expecting to serve his full 8-game suspension, and Rougned Hodor expected to hold the door, which I can't give any spoilers, but I don't even know if you watch Game of Thrones. I don't think
I do, but I haven't seen the most recent thing. I'm not like a diehard Game of Thrones. I've watched, like, with the Achilles rupture, I've watched a couple seasons. I'm trying really hard to get it. I like it, but I don't love it.
Okay, well, Hodor is the best character, so now I'm always going to call Rugi, my boy, Rougned Hodor, but I can't give any spoilers. I do want to – I know Friedman's into the show. Maybe I'll do a podcast with him talking about the show with all the homies that we got that listen or that watch the show and listen to our pod, so that'd be something cool we could do. We could probably tie in a little baseball into it as well, but my real bold call of the day, non-Thrones related, this is probably the coolest bold call of the day, is that both Chris Davises will hit a home run. So just pick – yeah, it's insane, right? I mean, could you imagine? Same day, same team.
That would be
lineup. So
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I already brought up Chris Davis with a C in a great matchup, but Chris Davis with a K also has a good matchup against a home run-prone pitcher, and he will have very low ownership. So I'm going with the Chris Davises in a couple lineups, some bomb droppers, and hoping for that double dong from 2 separate players, but still a double dong because they're the same name, so it counts.
Oh, love the call, Jay.
And yeah, that's what I got. I hope the bold call doesn't disappoint. But yeah,
my last bold call, which is not bold at all either. Golden State wins tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I mean, just the way that suspension turned out, these dudes are hyped. It's going to be a huge game. Can't wait.
And it'll be close, I'm hoping. I'm not super confident in it, but just I like Golden State tomorrow. And, hoping for a close game. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely, yeah. Watch all these baseball games. Hope your stacks hit. Definitely check out that Warriors game if you're still following along with basketball, which I hope you are, 'cause it's the best time of the season for that. And hopefully baseball goes well for you guys. We'll be back. Me and Brian will be back tomorrow night to break down Wednesday's slate on the pod tomorrow night. So until then, good luck. Pete, you got any last words for the listeners?
No, good luck, guys, and get some guys on the Red Sox. I think they're going to have a good day. So Red Sox and Warriors, it's the chalk, and hope you get this.
I hope so too. All right, see you guys next time.